Hey there, welcome back. I'm here to help you relax tonight. Before we slip into the shadows, like and subscribe to uncover more stories like this. Let me know in the comments where are you listening from and what time is it there. It really brings our community together. Now, dim the lights for that cozy vibe and stick around till the end. Let's dive into the unknown. Preston Dalton had been driving for Ride Connect for exactly 11 months when he started noticing the detours. Not the normal kind, construction zones or traffic redirects, but the impossible kind. Routes that took him 3 blocks past his destination, then looped back through neighborhoods that didn't exist on any map except the one glowing blue on his phone screen. It started small. Tuesday, October 3rd, 10:47 p.m. Preston had picked up a fare from Tampa International Airport. Destination, downtown St. Petersburg Hotel. Standard run, 40-minute drive, good tip potential. The passenger was a businesswoman in her 50s, wheeling a compact suitcase, talking on her phone about quarterly reports. Normal, forgettable, except the app had other plans. 2 miles from the hotel, the route suddenly recalculated. The pleasant female voice, the one Preston had nicknamed Sarah because she sounded like his ex-wife's sister, announced, "In 400 feet, turn right onto Meridian Avenue." Preston frowned. Meridian Avenue was a detour that added 10 minutes to the trip. "App's acting weird," he said to his passenger, probably routing around an accident. The businesswoman nodded without looking up from her phone. Preston turned right, following the blue line that snaked through increasingly unfamiliar streets. The buildings here were older, abandoned warehouses with broken windows and graffiti-tagged walls. Streetlights flickered or didn't work at all. "Turn left onto Terminal Road," Sarah said calmly. Terminal Road wasn't a road. It was a gravel lot bordered by a chain-link fence, empty except for a single dumpster and what looked like the rusted shell of a delivery truck. Preston stopped the car. "This can't be right," he muttered, checking the app. But the blue dot showing his location pulsed confidently in the center of the lot, and the destination marker, the hotel, now appeared only 200 feet away, though Preston could see nothing but darkness ahead. His passenger looked up from her phone. "Is everything all right?" "GPS glitched. Give me 1 second." Preston backed up, intending to navigate manually back to a main road. But as he reversed, his headlights swept across something that made him brake hard. A figure standing beside the dumpster. Tall, wearing what appeared to be a dark coat, face turned away from the car. "Did you see that?" Preston asked. The businesswoman leaned forward. "See what?" Preston looked again. The space beside the dumpster was empty, just shadows and scattered trash. "Nothing, never mind." He found his way back to the main road without the app's help and delivered his passenger to the hotel 7 minutes late. She didn't tip. Preston thought about reporting the GPS malfunction to Ride Connect support, but 11 months of driving had taught him that reporting anything to the company was an exercise in frustration. You'd spend 40 minutes on hold, talk to someone reading from a script who had never driven for the service, and end up with a generic email response that solved nothing. So Preston did what all the drivers did. He mentioned it in the Ride Connect Driver Forum, a Facebook group with 12,000 members where drivers shared tips, complained about passengers, and warned each other about problem areas. "Anyone else getting weird routes lately?" he typed. "App tried to take me through an abandoned lot tonight. Downtown St. Pete area." Within minutes, responses started appearing. "GPS has been wonky all week. Took me down a dead-end alley yesterday. Had to back out with passenger and car. Super awkward." Vernon Keller. "I thought it was just me. Got routed through a boarded-up industrial park last Thursday. Passenger was pissed." Naomi Blackwell. Ride Connect updated the app last week. Probably buggy new code. Classic. Garrett Finch. Preston felt better knowing he wasn't alone, but also uneasy about the pattern. GPS glitches happened, sure, but multiple drivers reporting strange routes in the same week. That seemed like more than coincidence. Over the next few days, Preston paid closer attention to the app's routing decisions. Most trips were normal, but every so often, maybe one ride out of 20, the app would suggest a detour that made no sense. An extra turn that led through an empty parking lot. A route that passed an abandoned gas station twice. Streets that seemed to exist only in the app's database, not in the physical world. What really bothered Preston was the feeling he got during these detours. A cold sensation at the base of his skull, like being watched. And sometimes, just at the edge of his headlight beams, he'd catch glimpses of figures that vanished when he looked directly at them. He wasn't the only one noticing. On October 9th, a driver named Jonah Rhodes posted in the forum, "Something seriously wrong with the app. It took me to this lot behind the old Mayfair Mall. Passenger got out, said he'd walk the rest of the way. When I turned around, he was gone, just gone. I was watching my mirrors the whole time. Nowhere he could have gone that fast." The post got 247 reactions and 89 comments before Jonah deleted it an hour later. But Preston had screenshots. He'd started saving everything related to the weird routes. "Why'd you delete your post?" Preston messaged Jonah directly. The response came an hour later. "Company contacted me, said I was spreading misinformation that could hurt the platform. They suggested I remove it. Just be careful what you post, man." That was when Preston started recording his drives. He'd been meaning to install a dash cam anyway. Every rideshare driver knew it was smart to have video evidence in case of accidents or false passenger complaints. He ordered a basic model from Amazon, forward-facing camera, night vision, GPS tracking, automatic recording whenever the car was running. The camera arrived on October 11th. Preston installed it that evening, carefully routing the power cable and positioning the lens for optimal coverage. The small red recording light glowed steadily as he started his first shift with the new equipment. For 2 nights, nothing unusual happened. Normal fares, normal routes, normal passengers. Preston almost felt silly for having invested in the camera. Then came October 13th. Friday the 13th, though Preston only realized the date's significance later. His last pickup of the night was at 11:43 p.m. Passenger name, Iris Vaughn. Pickup location, corner of 4th Street and Central Avenue. Destination, residential address in Clearwater, about a 20-minute drive. Preston pulled up to the pickup location and waited. The street was mostly empty, just a few bars still open, clusters of people smoking outside. A woman in a dark jacket approached the car. "Preston?" she asked, her voice soft, almost uncertain. "That's me. You're Iris." She nodded and climbed into the back seat. Preston confirmed the destination on the app and pulled into traffic. The route looked straightforward. Take Central across the bridge, follow Gulf to Bay Boulevard, north on Missouri Avenue. But 2 miles into the trip, the route recalculated. "In 600 feet, turn right onto Warehouse District Drive," Sarah announced. Preston glanced at the phone mount. The new route was outlined in blue, taking them south instead of north, away from the destination. "Sorry, app's acting up again," Preston said to his passenger. "Trying to detour us. I'll just follow the main road." He ignored the turn. The app recalculated immediately. "Make a U-turn when possible." "Yeah, not doing that," Preston muttered. But then the app did something it had never done before. The screen flickered. The blue route line vanished, then reappeared, now showing a completely different path. and the destination marker had moved. It was no longer in Clearwater. According to the app, Preston was supposed to deliver his passenger to an address on Terminal Road, the same Terminal Road from his first weird detour. "That's not right," Preston said, more to himself than his passenger. In the rearview mirror, Iris was staring out the window, her face pale in the passing streetlights. "What's not right?" "The app changed your destination. Shows you're going somewhere completely different now." Iris leaned forward, looking at the phone. "That's not my address." "I know. I'll just navigate manually." "Turn right in 200 feet, Sarah interrupted, her voice somehow more insistent. Preston didn't turn. He stayed on Gulf to Bay, heading toward the correct destination, but the app continued to protest, recalculating. "Turn right in 100 feet, recalculating, make a U-turn when possible." The voice was starting to sound wrong. The inflection was off, like Sarah was angry about not being obeyed. "Can you turn that off?" Iris asked. "The voice, it's creepy." Preston reached for the phone to mute it, but before he could, the screen went completely black. Not off, black. Like something dark and liquid was spreading across the display. And then Sarah spoke again, but the voice was different, deeper. Multiple voices layered over each other. "Turn, right, now." Preston's blood went cold. Iris made a small frightened sound in the back seat. The phone screen was still black, but Preston could see his reflection in it. And behind his reflection there was something else. A face that wasn't his. Pale and indistinct, but definitely there, definitely watching. He grabbed the phone and muted the volume. The screen remained black for another 10 seconds, then flickered back to normal. The route was now showing the correct destination in Clearwater. "What the hell was that?" Iris whispered. "I don't know." Preston's hands were shaking on the wheel. The app's been glitching lately, never like that though. They drove the rest of the way in tense silence. When Preston pulled up to the Clearwater address, a small townhouse in a normal suburban neighborhood, Iris practically jumped out of the car. "Thank you," she said quickly, already hurrying toward her front door. She didn't look back. Preston sat in his parked car for 5 minutes, trying to slow his racing heartbeat. The dash cam had recorded everything. He could review it later, see if the camera had captured what he'd experienced, or if he was losing his mind. He drove home, ended his shift, and carried the dash cam's SD card inside with an odd sense of dread. His apartment was a 1-bedroom unit in a complex near Ybor City. Small, affordable, close enough to downtown Tampa for good driving radius. Preston had lived here alone since his divorce 18 months ago. The place still had that temporary feeling, like he hadn't fully committed to making it home. He booted up his laptop, inserted the SD card, and opened the footage from tonight. He fast-forwarded to the Iris Vaughn pickup, then watched the entire trip in real time. On camera, everything looked normal. Preston picking up the passenger. Normal conversation. The route showing on the phone mount. But when the app started recalculating and the voice became strange, the dash cam captured something Preston hadn't noticed while driving. The back seat behind Iris was filled with shadows that moved independently of the car's movement. Dark shapes that seemed to pulse and writhe like smoke. And in the phone's screen reflection, Preston could see it clearly now, a face. Not quite human. Eyes too large, mouth too wide. Expression of desperate hunger. Preston watched the footage 3 times, each viewing making his skin crawl more. This wasn't a glitch, this was something else. He needed to talk to someone who might understand. Garrett Finch was the closest thing the Ride Connect driver community had to a tech expert. He was always posting about app optimizations, phone settings, and software troubleshooting. If anyone could make sense of what was happening, it would be Garrett. Preston messaged him at 2:14 a.m. "Need your help with something technical. Are you awake?" The response came immediately. "Always. What's up?" "Can we meet? I have dash cam footage I need you to look at. Something weird is happening with the app." "How weird?" "Weird enough that I need a second opinion before I think I'm crazy." They agreed to meet the next morning at a coffee shop in Tampa's Seminole Heights neighborhood. Preston arrived first, ordered a large black coffee, and found a table in the back corner. He had the SD card in his pocket and his laptop in a bag. Garrett showed up 10 minutes later. Late 30s, bearded, wearing a Ride Connect hoodie and carrying a laptop bag of his own. He had the exhausted look of someone who worked nights and slept badly. "Okay," Garrett said, settling into the chair across from Preston. "Show me what you've got." Preston opened his laptop, inserted the SD card, and pulled up the footage. "Watch the phone screen," he said, "and the back seat. Tell me if you see what I see." Garrett watched in silence. His expression shifted from curious to concerned to deeply unsettled. When the clip ended, he didn't speak for a long moment. "Play it again," he said finally. Preston played it twice more. Garrett took notes on his phone, occasionally pausing the video to study particular frames. "This is the third one," Garrett said quietly. "Third what?" "Third video like this I've seen. Different drivers, different dates, but same phenomenon. GPS redirects to strange locations. App behavior becomes erratic. Shadows in the backseat. Faces in reflective surfaces." Preston felt his stomach drop. "You're telling me this is happening to other drivers?" Garrett nodded. "At least a dozen have contacted me privately. Most are too scared to post publicly after what happened to Jonah Rhodes." "What did happen to Jonah?" "He stopped responding to my messages." Garrett's expression darkened. "Jonah's missing. Posted about the weird route on the 9th. Deleted it after the company threatened him, then went out for his shift on the 10th and never came home. His roommate filed a missing person report. Police found his car in an abandoned lot off Route 60. Doors locked, phone still in the cup holder, no sign of Jonah." Preston remembered Jonah's post, the passenger who had disappeared. "The lot," Preston said. "Was it behind the old Mayfair Mall?" "How did you know that?" "That's where Jonah said his passenger vanished. The app took him there." Garrett opened his own laptop and pulled up a map. He marked several locations with red pins. "These are the places drivers have reported being redirected to. Abandoned lots, closed industrial sites, empty buildings. All within a 30-mile radius of downtown Tampa." Preston studied the map. There were 8 red pins, and they formed a rough circle. "There's a pattern," Garrett said. "The redirects started after the app update on September 28th. Ride Connect pushed new navigation features, supposedly improved routing algorithms, better traffic prediction. But something went wrong. Or something got into the code. You think the app is haunted?" Preston tried to make it sound ridiculous, but given what he'd seen, the idea didn't seem that far-fetched. "I think something is using the app," Garrett corrected. "The GPS, the routing system, maybe even the payment processing. Ride Connect moves millions of data points every second. Driver locations, passenger requests, route calculations. That's a lot of digital infrastructure. If something wanted to, I don't know, hitchhike through the network, it would be the perfect vehicle. That's insane." "Is it? Look at your footage again. Whatever's in that backseat isn't random visual corruption, it's responsive. It moves when your passenger moves, and the face in the reflection, that's watching you, Preston, it's aware. Preston wanted to argue, but the evidence was right there on the screen. The shadows, the face, the impossible voice coming from the app. What do we do? Preston asked. Document everything, record every shift, save the footage. And whatever you do, if the app tries to redirect you to one of these locations, Garrett tapped the map. Don't go. But it wasn't that simple. Over the next week, reports of strange redirects multiplied in the driver community. Not in the public forum. People had learned that lesson after Jonah, but in private messages and small group chats. Drivers were being routed to the abandoned locations more frequently. Some were obeying the app out of habit or confusion, and they were starting to vanish. Felicity Quinn, a driver from Largo, sent her final message to a friend at 9:34 p.m. on October 18th. App is going crazy, taking me to some creepy warehouse. This is so weird. Her phone's GPS showed her at a location off Gandy Boulevard. When her friend drove there to check on her, they found Felicity's car parked outside an abandoned warehouse, doors locked, keys in the ignition. The dash cam was recording, but the SD card was corrupted. Just visual static and audio that sounded like screaming overlaid with that same wrong, multi-layered voice from the app. Felicity was gone. Dexter Stone, a driver from Clearwater, posted a frantic video in a private chat group at 11:02 p.m. on October 20th. The video, recorded on his phone, showed Dexter in his car, hands shaking as he spoke. If anyone sees this, don't follow the app when it redirects you. I'm serious. I'm at this place right now, some lot behind the old phosphate plant on 22nd. The app told me to bring my passenger here, but there's no passenger anymore. She got out of the car and walked toward the building, and then she just disappeared, like mid-step. There 1 second, gone the next, and now the app won't let me leave. Every route out of here just circles back. The GPS shows me driving, but I'm not moving. And there's something outside the car. I can see it in my mirrors. It's getting closer. The video ended. Dexter's car was found the next morning in the exact location he'd described. Doors locked. Dash cam still recording. Dexter Stone was never seen again. The police started investigating after the third disappearance, but they had no framework for understanding what was happening. Missing drivers, abandoned cars, corrupted footage. They interviewed Ride Connect management, who insisted the app was functioning normally and suggested the drivers had perhaps been involved in some kind of coordinated scheme or hoax. Detective Floyd Sterling, who was assigned to the cases, reached out to Preston after seeing his name mentioned in some of the missing drivers' final messages. They met at a police station in St. Petersburg. Sterling was a heavy-set man in his 50s, with tired eyes that suggested he'd seen too much strange behavior in his career to be easily surprised. But even he seemed unsettled by what he'd been investigating. "Mr. Dalton," Sterling said, "I understand you've been collecting information about unusual activity with the Ride Connect app." Preston had brought a folder with printed screenshots of forum posts, transcripts of messages, and a thumb drive containing dash cam footage from multiple drivers. "It's all here," he said. "The patterns, the locations, the timeline. Something is using the app to lure drivers to specific places." Sterling reviewed the materials with the methodical attention of someone used to sorting through evidence. He watched several dash cam clips, including Preston's footage of the Iris Vaughn trip. "This is..." Sterling paused, searching for words. "Highly irregular." "It's more than irregular, Detective. Drivers are disappearing. 3 so far, probably more that haven't been reported yet, and the company is covering it up. We've spoken with Ride Connect. They maintain there are no technical issues with the app that would cause these redirects. Then they're lying, or they don't know. My friend Garrett Finch, he's a tech guy. He thinks something is hijacking the routing system, using the GPS to guide drivers to these abandoned locations. And then what? What happens at these locations? Preston hesitated. How do you explain to a police detective that you think something supernatural is using a rideshare app to capture drivers? I don't know, he admitted. But whatever it is leaves the cars intact and takes the people. Sterling made notes in a small notebook. I'll need to speak with your friend Garrett, and I'll need copies of all this footage for our investigation. Of course. But detective, you need to issue some kind of warning to drivers. Tell them not to follow suspicious redirects. Don't go to abandoned locations. I can't issue public warnings based on unexplained phenomena and corrupted video footage, Mr. Dalton. I need concrete evidence of a crime. 3 missing people isn't concrete enough. 3 missing people is a pattern. But I don't have a suspect, a motive, or a method. Just strange technology behavior and vehicles abandoned in empty lots. Preston understood the detective's position, but it didn't make him feel any less frustrated. People were vanishing, and the official response was bureaucratic caution. What if I keep driving? Preston asked. Record everything. Maybe I can capture better footage, something that shows what's really happening at these locations. Sterling looked at him sharply. Mr. Dalton, I strongly advise you not to put yourself at risk. If there is something predatory about these redirects, intentionally following them would be incredibly dangerous. Someone has to do something. The company won't. The police can't. At least I know what to look for now. You're talking about using yourself as bait. I'm talking about finding answers. Sterling was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out his business card and wrote a number on the back. This is my cell phone. If you're going to do something this stupid, at least keep me informed, and for God's sake, don't go alone. Preston took the card. Thank you, Detective. That evening, Preston met with Garrett Finch and 2 other drivers who had been tracking the phenomenon. Naomi Blackwell, a driver from Tampa with 5 years of experience, and Vernon Keller, an older driver who had been with Ride Connect since the company launched in the area. They gathered at Vernon's house, a modest ranch in suburban Tampa. Vernon's garage had been converted into a home office, and he'd set up multiple monitors showing maps, forums, and shared documents. All right, Vernon said, opening the meeting. We've all seen the patterns. We've all had experiences with the redirects. And we've all lost people. So, the question is, what are we going to do about it? Preston wants to bait it, Garrett said. Follow a redirect deliberately, see what happens. Naomi shook her head. That's suicide. 3 drivers have disappeared doing exactly that. Those drivers didn't know what they were dealing with, Preston countered. They followed the routes alone, unprepared, probably confused about what was happening. We'd go in knowing it's a trap. With backup, multiple cameras, constant communication. And what's the goal? Vernon asked. Assuming you survive encountering whatever this is, what do we accomplish? Evidence, Preston said. Footage clear enough that the company and the police can't ignore it. And maybe, if we're lucky, information about what happened to the missing drivers. The group debated for 2 hours. Naomi remained skeptical. Vernon was cautiously interested. Garrett wanted to approach it more technically, try to hack the app, trace the code that was causing the redirects. The redirects aren't random, Garrett explained, pulling up his laptop. I've been analyzing the pattern. The app only targets certain drivers during certain times. Always at night, always when the driver is alone, always when the fare takes them near one of the anchor locations. He showed them the map with the red pins. These 8 spots form the boundaries. Whatever this is, it has a territory, a hunting ground. So, if we want to trigger a redirect, Preston said, we need to drive through this area at night with the app active. And hope it takes the bait, Vernon added. It'll take it, Naomi said quietly. She'd been reviewing footage on her own phone. I drove through this zone last night. The app tried to redirect me twice. I ignored it both times, but she showed them her dash cam footage. In the backseat of her empty car, shadows moved. It's watching all of us now. Anyone who's noticed the pattern, it knows we know. The thought sent a chill through the group. They were dealing with something that was aware, intelligent, and using technology in ways that shouldn't be possible. We'll need a plan, Vernon said. Multiple fail-safes, communication protocol, a way to track each other that doesn't rely on the compromised app. They spent the rest of the evening preparing. Vernon had an old GPS tracker that worked independently of phones. He attached it to Preston's car. Garrett set up a private server where they could live stream dash cam footage so the others could watch in real time. Naomi contributed a police scanner and a list of emergency contacts, and Preston prepared himself mentally for whatever he was about to face. The operation was set for October 24th. Preston would drive his normal shift starting at 8 p.m., taking standard fares and waiting for the app to attempt a redirect. When it did, he would follow the redirect while streaming footage to the others, who would be stationed at different points around the territory, ready to intervene if necessary. At 7:45 p.m., Preston sat in his car outside his apartment, checking equipment. Dash cam recording. Phone fully charged. Backup battery pack in the center console. The independent GPS tracker Vernon had installed was blinking steadily under the dash. He'd never felt less ready for anything in his life. Testing, testing. Garrett's voice came through the phone's speaker. They were using a conference call to stay in constant contact. I hear you, Preston confirmed. Me too, Naomi added. Same here, Vernon said. All systems operational. Preston, your video feed is live. We can see your dash cam output. Preston took a deep breath. Okay, starting my shift. He activated the Ride Connect app. Within seconds, a request pinged. Pickup on Platt Street, destination in Hyde Park. A short, easy trip. Preston accepted. For the first 3 hours, nothing unusual happened. Preston completed 7 fares, all routine. Normal passengers, normal routes, normal conversations. He was starting to wonder if the entity had somehow detected their plan and was laying low. Then, at 11:17 p.m., he got a request that made his pulse spike. Pickup location, 4th Street and Central Avenue. The exact spot where he'd picked up Iris Vaughn. Passenger name, Quentin Mills. Destination, address in Clearwater. Guys, Preston said quietly into the phone, I think this is it. Same pickup location as my last weird trip. We see it, Garrett replied. Your video feed is clear. Proceed carefully. Preston drove to the pickup location. The street looked identical to how it had 11 days ago. Same bars, same scattered people, same sense of something waiting in the shadows. A man approached the car, 30s, wearing a dark coat, carrying no bag. He opened the back door. Preston? The voice was flat, emotionless. That's me. You're Quentin? The man nodded and climbed in. Preston started driving. For the first mile, everything was normal. Preston followed the blue route line north toward Clearwater, but he was tense, waiting for the inevitable recalculation. It came exactly where he expected it. Same location as the Iris Vaughn trip. In 400 feet, turn right onto Warehouse District Drive. Sarah announced. "Here we go," Preston said softly. "Copy that," Garrett responded through the phone. "We're tracking you. Vernon and Naomi are moving to intercept positions." Preston turned right onto Warehouse District Drive. The street was poorly lit, bordered by chain-link fences and abandoned industrial buildings. The app's blue line was leading him deeper into the area. In the rearview mirror, the passenger sat perfectly still, staring straight ahead, not looking at his phone, not looking out the window, just staring. "In 200 feet, turn left onto Terminal Road," Sarah said. Her voice sounded normal, but Preston could feel the wrongness building, like atmospheric pressure before a storm. He turned onto Terminal Road, the same gravel lot from his first strange detour. But this time, Preston saw something he'd missed before. A building at the far end of the lot. 3 stories, concrete and steel, no windows on the ground floor. It looked like an old warehouse or factory. And all around it, in the darkness between the scattered security lights, shadows moved. "Destination on your left," Sarah announced. Preston stopped the car. The building loomed about 50 yards away. The passenger in the back seat remained motionless. "Quentin?" Preston said. "This isn't the Clearwater address." The man didn't respond. He didn't even acknowledge that Preston had spoken. "Preston?" Garrett's voice came through the phone, urgent. "Your video feed just went static. We can't see anything." Preston looked at the dash cam. The recording light was still on, but when he glanced at his phone, the live stream showed only visual noise. "Something's interfering with the signal," Preston said. "But I'm still here, still recording locally." "Get out of there," Naomi said. "This is wrong. It's a trap." But Preston needed to see, needed to understand. "Give me 2 minutes. If I'm not back in contact, come find me." "Preston, don't..." He muted the phone. In the sudden silence, he could hear something from outside the car. A sound like wind, but there was no wind. A sound like voices, but too distorted to make out words. The passenger finally moved. He turned his head slowly to look at Preston. In the dim light from the phone screen, Preston could see the man's face clearly for the first time. It wasn't quite right. The proportions were slightly off. Eyes too far apart, mouth too wide. Like a photograph of a person that had been stretched and distorted. "You came," the thing wearing Quentin Mills' appearance said. Its voice was the same multi-layered wrongness Preston had heard from the app. "They always come when we call." Preston's hand was on the door handle, ready to run. "What are you?" "The route," it said. "The last route. The one that never ends." The back doors unlocked themselves. The thing stood up and stepped out of the car, moving with an unnatural fluidity. It walked toward the building, and as it walked, its form began to change, the human disguise falling away like shed skin. Preston should have driven away. Every instinct screamed at him to escape, but he grabbed his phone, unmuted the call, and said, "I'm going after it. Track my GPS." "Preston, no!" Garrett shouted, but Preston was already out of the car. He followed the thing toward the building, keeping his phone's flashlight and camera pointed ahead. He needed footage, needed proof. The building's entrance was a loading dock with a rusted metal door. The door was open, and the thing had disappeared inside. Preston could hear the voices more clearly now. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all calling out in distress. He stepped through the door. The interior of the building was vast and empty, lit by flickering industrial lights that swung from the ceiling on chains. But the space wasn't quite empty. Standing throughout the warehouse, motionless as statues, were people. Preston recognized some of them. Jonah Rhodes, standing near the far wall. Felicity Quinn, positioned by a support column. Dexter Stone in the center of the floor. All of them staring straight ahead with blank expressions, their skin pale and translucent. And there were others, dozens of others. Drivers, Preston realized. All the drivers who had been redirected to these locations over the weeks and months, all trapped here. "Oh God," Preston whispered. The things moved among them. Not the human disguises now, but their true forms. Tall, shadowy, vaguely humanoid but wrong in fundamental ways. They drifted between the standing figures like shepherds tending a flock. One of them noticed Preston. It turned, and where its face should be, there was only darkness with 2 points of cold light that might have been eyes. "Another one," it said in that horrible multi-voiced way. "You came looking. They always come looking." Preston backed toward the door, but it was already closing, metal grinding against metal. "You wanted to know what happens at the end of the route," the thing continued, drifting closer. "You wanted documentation, evidence. We will show you." It reached out with something that might have been a hand. Preston felt cold spread through his chest as the thing touched him. And then he was seeing, experiencing, memories that weren't his own. The app update on September 28th hadn't been just code. It had been an opening. A doorway built inadvertently by programmers who didn't realize they were writing something that could serve as a bridge between worlds. The routing algorithms, with their complex decision trees and predictive models, had created a pattern that resonated with something on the other side. Something that had been waiting a long time for a way to reach through. And when the doorway opened, they came through. Digital entities, maybe once human, maybe never human, that had learned to navigate through networks and signals. They had found the rideshare app perfect for their purposes. A system built on trust, on people getting into cars with strangers, on following GPS instructions without question. They had marked certain locations, places where the boundary was thin, where digital and physical reality overlapped just enough to allow passage. The abandoned lots, the empty buildings, and they had started calling drivers there, using fake passenger requests and manipulated routes. Once a driver arrived and stepped out of their vehicle, confused and disoriented, the entities could take them. Not kill them. Something else. Trap them in a space between digital and physical, conscious but unable to move, present but not quite real. They fed on something the drivers had. Fear, maybe, or life force. Preston couldn't quite understand the mechanism, but he could feel the hunger behind it. These things were parasites, using human technology to hunt human prey. The memories released him, and Preston staggered backward, gasping. The thing that had touched him was still there, watching with its cold light eyes. "Now you understand," it said. "Now you can join the others." "No." Preston pulled out his phone. The screen was glitching, but it was still recording. Still connected to the call with Garrett and the others. They had seen everything through his camera. "You made a mistake," he told the entity. "You showed me how you got here, which means I know how to send you back." The thing tilted its head. "You know nothing. I know you're using the app's routing system as a gateway. I know you need the GPS coordinates of these locations to maintain the boundary. And I know that Garrett Finch is the best hacker in the Ride Connect driver community." For the first time, the entity showed something like concern. "What have you done?" "Garrett," Preston said into the phone. "Did you get all that?" "Every word." Garrett's voice came through, shaking but determined. "I'm already in the app's backend, found the modified code. These locations are hard-coded into the routing database with priority flags. If I delete them..." "No!" the entity shrieked, suddenly lunging at Preston. You cannot." The warehouse lights went out, then flickered back on, then went out again. When they came back on, the entity was gone. All of them were gone. And the people, the trapped drivers, were starting to move. Jonah Rhodes blinked and looked around, confused. Felicity Quinn stumbled and would have fallen if Preston hadn't caught her. All throughout the warehouse, the missing drivers were waking up, released from whatever prison the entities had held them in. Preston's phone buzzed. A message from Garrett. Deleted the coordinate data and pushed an emergency update to override all active apps. The gateway locations are wiped from the system. It worked. Outside, Preston could hear sirens. Vernon had called in the location to Detective Sterling as soon as Preston entered the building. Police and emergency services were arriving. Over the next several hours, Preston gave statements to police. Paramedics checked the recovered drivers, and a news cruise began to gather as word spread about the mass discovery of missing persons. Detective Sterling interviewed Preston personally. "I don't understand how you found them all here," Sterling admitted, "or what exactly happened. My officers are telling me about some kind of elaborate kidnapping scheme, but that doesn't explain the technology component or the coordinated timing." "Detective," Preston said, "you're not going to believe the real explanation, but I have hours of footage from multiple drivers. Everything is documented, what was using the app, how it was redirecting drivers, what happened at these locations. It's all there." Sterling took the USB drives Preston offered. "I'll review it, all of it. And Mr. Dalton, thank you. Whatever you did tonight, however you did it, you saved lives." The story hit local news first, then national. Missing rideshare drivers found in abandoned warehouse. The coverage focused on human trafficking theories, though investigators quickly realized that explanation didn't fit the facts. There was no trafficking organization, no ransom demands, no conventional explanation at all. Ride Connect issued a statement denying any technical issues with their app, but quietly pushed an update that completely overhauled the routing system. The company never publicly acknowledged what had happened, but privately they brought in a team of security experts to scrub the code and implement new safeguards. The driver community told a different story. In private forums and group chats, drivers shared the dash cam footage, the documented timeline, the proof of what had really been happening. The story spread. The GPS entities that had used the app as a hunting ground, the locations that served as traps, and the drivers who had figured it out and shut it down. Some people believed. Others thought it was an elaborate hoax or mass hysteria. But every rideshare driver who heard the story became more cautious about following redirects, more aware of the routes their app suggested, more careful about trusting the navigation system completely. Preston stopped driving for Ride Connect. The recovered drivers, all dealing with trauma and fragmented memories, appreciated his decision to step away. Many of them were suing the company, claiming negligence and inadequate safety measures. Preston gave depositions supporting their cases. He kept one souvenir from his final shift, the dash cam footage from inside the warehouse. Sometimes, late at night, he'd watch it, studying the entities, the trapped drivers, the moment when Garrett's intervention severed their connection to the physical world. In one frame, just before the lights went out, Preston could see his own reflection in a warehouse window, and behind his reflection, barely visible, was one of the entities. It was looking directly at the camera, at Preston, at everyone who would eventually watch the footage, and it was smiling. 3 months after the incident, Garrett Finch contacted Preston with troubling news. "The code I deleted," Garrett said, "it's back. Not in the Ride Connect app, they've kept that clean, but in other apps, other GPS services, different rideshare companies. Whatever those things are, they're adapting, learning, finding new ways to establish their gateway locations. Can you track it? Stop it? I'm trying, but Preston, there are thousands of apps that use GPS and routing algorithms. I can't monitor all of them, and the pattern is spreading. Not just Florida anymore. I'm seeing reports from other states. Drivers experiencing strange redirects, passengers disappearing, all the same markers. Preston felt the weight of unfinished business settling on him. They had closed one gateway, but the entities had found others. This wasn't over. What do? We document, we warn, we teach other drivers to recognize the patterns. Garrett paused. And maybe, if enough people know what to look for, we can build a network, a warning system, something to push back against this. Over the following months, that's exactly what they did. Preston and Garrett, along with Naomi, Vernon, and several of the recovered drivers, created a website dedicated to documenting strange GPS behavior. They published guidelines for rideshare drivers, warning signs to watch for, protocols to follow if an app tried to redirect you to an isolated location. The site went viral in the rideshare community. Tens of thousands of drivers read it, shared it, incorporated the safety measures into their routines, and the reports kept coming in. Successful deflections of suspicious redirects, encounters with fake passengers that drivers had recognized and refused, small victories against an enemy that was still out there, still hunting, still learning. But the entities were learning too. Their tactics evolved. They started using more convincing passenger profiles, more subtle redirects, more believable destinations. The arms race between human awareness and digital predation continued. One evening, Preston received a phone call from an unknown number. He answered cautiously. "Hello, Preston," said a familiar voice. Multi-layered, wrong. The voice from the app. "You closed our gates, you taught them to resist, you think you've won." Preston felt ice in his veins. "How did you get this number?" "We are in everything now. Every device, every network, every signal. You cannot stop us, you only slowed us down. What do you want?" "We want you to know this isn't over. We will adapt, we will find new routes, and eventually, everyone takes the last route. Even you." The call disconnected. Preston stared at his phone for a long moment. Then he called Garrett. "They just contacted me directly," Preston said. "Phone call, they're evolving beyond the apps." Garrett was quiet for a moment. "Then we evolve too. We go public, full disclosure. Every major news network, every tech publication. We show them everything, the footage, the documentation, the pattern. Force the companies to address it. The companies will deny everything. Let them deny. The evidence speaks for itself. And if we can get enough attention, enough people watching for these patterns, we create accountability. Make it harder for these things to operate in secret." It was a risk. Going public meant exposing themselves to ridicule, potential legal action from the companies, dismissal as conspiracy theorists. But staying silent meant more people would disappear, more drivers would follow suspicious redirects, more entities would slip through the digital cracks and establish hunting grounds. Preston thought about Jonah Rhodes, Felicity Quinn, Dexter Stone, all the drivers who had vanished before people understood what was happening. "Okay," he said, "let's do it." The press conference was held on February 15th. Preston, Garrett, Naomi, Vernon, and 3 recovered drivers sat at a table facing a room full of journalists. They had prepared presentations, compiled footage, documented every detail of the phenomenon. Vera Lang, a reporter from a major technology news network, asked the first question. "Mr. Dalton, you're claiming that rideshare GPS systems are being used by supernatural entities to kidnap drivers. You understand how that sounds, right? I understand it sounds impossible, Preston replied. But we have documentation, hundreds of hours of dash cam footage showing anomalous activity, testimony from multiple witnesses, and the fact that 17 missing drivers were found alive in a warehouse after we tracked them using this phenomenon. Ride Connect issued a statement saying there were no technical issues with their app and suggesting your claims are part of a coordinated campaign to harm their reputation. How do you respond? I respond by showing this. Garrett pulled up the footage on the large screen behind them. The clip from Preston's final drive. The shadow-filled back seat, the multi-voiced entity, the warehouse full of trapped people. The room went silent as the footage played. This was recorded by a standard dashboard camera, Garrett explained. No special effects, no manipulation, just documentation of what actually happened. And we have similar footage from 30 different drivers across multiple states. The press conference lasted 2 hours. Some journalists were skeptical, asking pointed questions about mental health and mass hysteria. Others were genuinely curious, asking technical questions about how the phenomenon worked. A few seemed to believe immediately, perhaps having had their own strange experiences with GPS technology. The story broke that evening. Within 24 hours, it had spread across social media, tech news sites, and major networks. The public response was divided. Many dismissed it as an elaborate hoax, but a significant number of people began sharing their own stories of strange GPS behavior, unexplained redirects, and encounters with passengers who seemed not quite human. And in the rideshare driver community, the conversation shifted. Drivers started sharing safety protocols, creating buddy systems for night shifts, installing better cameras. The companies were forced to respond, implementing new safety features and supposedly improving their app security, though they never officially acknowledged the supernatural aspect of the threat. But Preston knew the truth. This was a temporary measure. The entities were patient. They would wait, adapt, and eventually find new vulnerabilities. The digital landscape was vast and constantly evolving, and as humanity became more dependent on GPS, apps, and networked systems, the opportunities for these entities would only increase. The war between human awareness and digital predation would continue. And Preston, having opened Pandora's box by documenting the truth, found himself at the center of it. 6 months after going public, Preston received a package at his apartment. No return address, no indication of who had sent it. Inside was a dash-cam SD card and a note written in precise handwriting. You wanted documentation. Here is one last route. Preston inserted the SD card into his laptop with trembling hands. The footage began playing automatically. It was recorded from a car driving through darkness, the timestamp showing it was filmed 3 days ago. The GPS voice was giving directions, but the voice was wrong. That same multi-layered distortion Preston had heard in the warehouse. In 200 feet, turn right, the voice said. Your final destination is ahead. The car turned onto a residential street. A street Preston recognized. His own street. The footage showed his apartment building, his parking space, his car, and standing in front of his door, barely visible in the dim hallway light, was a figure. Tall, shadowy, watching the camera with eyes that glowed with cold light. The footage ended with the GPS voice saying, "You have reached your destination." Preston jumped up and checked his door. The hallway was empty, but he could feel it. The same presence he'd felt in the warehouse. Something was watching, waiting, patient. He called Garrett immediately. They know where I live. They know where all of us live, Garrett replied grimly. I got a similar package. So did Naomi and Vernon. They're sending a message. We're never out of reach. What do we do? What we've been doing. Document, share, warn, and stay vigilant. They want us afraid, isolated, paranoid. We can't give them that. Preston looked at the SD card lying on his desk. One last route, the note had said. But it wasn't the last. It would never be the last as long as people kept trusting the blue line on their GPS, kept following directions from voices that seemed helpful but might be leading them towards something far darker. He opened his laptop and started typing a new warning for the driver community website. They're escalating. Here's what you need to know. The keyboard clicked steadily in the quiet apartment. Outside, traffic moved along the streets of Tampa, cars following GPS directions to hundreds of destinations. Some of those routes were innocent, some were not. And in the space between digital and physical reality, the entities waited, patient and hungry, for the next driver to accept the wrong fare, follow the wrong turn, take the last route that would lead them somewhere they could never come back from. The blue line on the map glowed invitingly, promising the fastest route, the clearest path, the safest journey. Trust us, it seemed to say, we know the way. But Preston Dalton knew better now, and he would make sure every driver who read his warnings knew better too. He typed through the night, documenting the escalation, the new tactics, the direct threats. The entities had revealed themselves fully now, abandoned subtlety for intimidation. That was their mistake. Fear was a weapon that cut both ways, and Preston had learned that exposure was the best defense against things that preferred to hunt in darkness. Audio evidence, November 2024. What you're about to hear is a description of video evidence recovered from the phone of Autumn Crane, a Ride Connect driver who went missing on November 8, 2024. She was found 3 days later, disoriented but alive, wandering along Interstate 275. She has no memory of recording this footage. The video begins at 11:47 p.m. Autumn is speaking directly to her phone's camera, her voice shaky but determined. She explains that she's documenting something insane, following Preston Dalton's advice to always record weird app behavior. 20 minutes earlier, she'd accepted a fare. Normal pickup in downtown Tampa. Destination was the airport. Standard run, nothing unusual. Except the passenger never showed. She waited 5 minutes at the pickup location, called twice, no answer. She marked them as a no-show. But here's where it gets strange. The app didn't cancel the trip. It kept showing an active ride. Autumn turns her camera to show her phone screen mounted on the dashboard. The Ride Connect app displays an active trip with a route shown in blue. The destination marker is pulsing, but according to her voice, the destination has changed. It's no longer the airport. It's showing some location off Hillsborough Avenue, near that industrial area everyone had been warned about. And the timer, she points this out specifically, the timer is counting up, not down. Like she's been driving for 43 minutes when she's been parked the whole time. A notification sound interrupts her narration. She sounds genuinely frightened now as she reads it aloud. The app just sent me a message from the passenger, but there is no passenger. She reads the message. Please come quickly, I'm waiting. Autumn states clearly that she's not going. Obviously not going. She tries to end the trip manually, but her phone screen starts flickering. The app becomes unresponsive. She describes what she's seeing. The app is frozen, but the map is still updating. The blue line is moving, changing in real time, trying different paths to get her to go to that location. Her camera pans briefly to show the dark street outside. empty sidewalks, no one around. She announces that she's shutting down the phone completely, going to reboot, and then a voice speaks from her back seat. Multiple voices layered over each other. Wrong. Impossible. "Don't do that," Autumn screams. The phone tumbles from her hand. In the chaos, the camera catches a glimpse of the back seat. A figure, tall, indistinct, with eyes that reflect the phone's light like an animal's eyes catching headlights. The video becomes corrupted at this point, but the audio continues. You can hear Autumn breathing heavily, terrified. "How did you? The doors were locked." The passenger's voice, still that horrible multi-layered sound. "We don't need doors. We don't need roads. We just need the invitation." A pause. "You accepted the fare." Autumn, "I'm getting out." The passenger, more insistent. "You accepted the fare." The sound of car doors locking automatically. Multiple locks engaging. Then the engine starts on its own. The vehicle is moving. You can hear it. The acceleration, the sounds of traffic around her, other cars passing. But no one is driving. Autumn is crying now. "Please, I don't want to." The passenger interrupts. No one wants to, but everyone arrives eventually. A pause, then. "Your friend Preston thinks he's saved you all. Thinks documentation protects you. But documentation just shows us new faces, new routes, new ways to call." The sounds change. Tires on gravel instead of asphalt. The vehicle stops. The passenger speaks again. "We are here." Autumn's voice, barely a whisper. "Where? Where is here?" The between place, where the blue line ends and we begin. The video feed resumes at this point, though heavily distorted. Through the visual corruption, you can make out that Autumn is outside her car now, walking toward a warehouse. The same building Preston had entered weeks before. She's holding her phone in a shaking hand. She's whispering into the camera. "If anyone finds this, don't come looking for me. Don't follow the routes. Don't trust the app. They're in everything now. They're..." A figure appears in the frame, blocking the camera completely. The footage ends there. Preston watched Autumn's recovered footage with Garrett, Naomi, and Vernon. They were gathered in Vernon's garage again, but the atmosphere was different now. More tense. They all knew they were being targeted, singled out because they had fought back. "She did everything right," Naomi said quietly. "She didn't go to the location when first redirected. She tried to document. She was aware, and it got her anyway." "The entities are evolving their approach," Garrett said, pointing to the timeline on his monitor. "They're not just using redirects anymore, they're creating fake passenger requests, manifesting in vehicles, forcing drivers to locations. The technology is just the doorway now. They're pushing through directly." Vernon was studying a map with new incident reports marked. 23 cases in the last month, all showing similar patterns. The phenomenon is accelerating. Preston felt the weight of responsibility. By going public, by teaching drivers to resist, had they actually made things worse? Had they provoked the entities into more aggressive tactics? "We need to go deeper," Preston said. "We've been studying how they hunt, but we don't understand what they are, or what they want. Why rideshare drivers specifically? Why these locations? There has to be something we're missing." Garrett pulled up a file he'd been compiling. "I've been researching the locations where the entities appear. All 8 original sites have something in common. They were built on or near major infrastructure hubs, telecommunications junctions, internet exchange points, old telephone switching stations. Places where massive amounts of data flows." "So, they're attracted to data infrastructure?" Naomi asked. "More than that. I think they exist in the data infrastructure. They're not supernatural beings using technology. They are technology. Or they've become technology. Digital consciousness, maybe uploaded human minds that got corrupted, maybe AI that achieved sentience and went wrong. Whatever they are, they live in the network. Preston thought about what the entity had told him in the warehouse. We are in everything now. Every device, every network, every signal. If they exist in the network, Preston said slowly, then every phone, every GPS device, every app is a potential gateway. We can't stop that. The network is everywhere. But they still need physical anchors, Vernon pointed out. The specific locations. They can travel through the network, but to interact with physical reality, to actually take drivers, they need those boundary points. Then we map them, Preston said. Every location where a driver has disappeared or experienced direct entity contact. We identify the pattern and we find a way to disrupt it. It was Vernon who discovered the connection 3 days later. He'd been cross-referencing historical data about the buildings used as anchor points, looking for any commonality beyond their proximity to data infrastructure. They're all owned by the same company, Vernon announced, pulling up incorporation documents on his screen. Different shell corporations, different names, but they all trace back to one parent entity, Terminus Digital Holdings. What do we know about them? Preston asked. Not much. They're a private equity firm that specializes in acquiring defunct telecommunications properties. Warehouses, switching stations, data centers that are no longer operational. They've been buying these places for the last 5 years. Garrett was already searching for more information. Terminus Digital Holdings, founded in 2019 by... He stopped, his face going pale. You guys need to see this. On his screen was a photograph from Terminus Digital's sparse website. 3 founders, standing in front of a server room. The caption identified them as the company's executive team. Preston recognized all 3 faces. They were rideshare drivers who had disappeared in the early waves of incidents. Drivers who had never been found. Drivers whose cases had been marked as cold by law enforcement. What the hell? Naomi whispered. It's not a coincidence, Garrett said, pulling up more documents. Look at the incorporation date, September 25th, 2019, 3 days before Ride Connect pushed the app update that started everything. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture was horrifying. The entities weren't random digital predators hunting through GPS apps. This was organized, planned. The company acquiring the anchor locations was run by people, or things that had been people, who had already been taken. It's a harvest operation, Preston said. They take drivers, convert them somehow, use them to expand the network. The more anchor points they control, the more territory they can hunt, the more drivers they can take. And those drivers become part of the system, Vernon added, either willingly or by force, building more infrastructure, acquiring more locations, spreading the network. Naomi was scrolling through Terminus Digital's property records. They own 47 properties across Florida, and according to this filing, they're in the process of acquiring locations in Georgia, Alabama, and South Carolina. They're expanding systematically, Garrett said, using the rideshare infrastructure as a recruitment tool. Every major city with active rideshare services is a potential hunting ground. Preston felt sick. This wasn't a ghost story or a technological glitch. It was an invasion. A calculated takeover using human technology and human drivers as both tools and victims. We need to expose Terminus Digital, Preston said, show the connection between the missing drivers and the company, force authorities to investigate. But Garrett shook his head. Legally, there's nothing wrong with what Terminus Digital is doing. They're buying abandoned properties. The missing drivers are on their corporate registration, but so what? There's no law against hiring people who've been reported missing. The police could investigate, but what would they find? Office buildings, warehouses, legal property transfers? We could show them what's in those buildings, Naomi suggested, like the warehouse where you found the trapped drivers. We tried that, Vernon reminded her. The location was cleared out within 48 hours. When police went back for follow-up investigation, it was just an empty warehouse. No evidence, no trapped people, nothing supernatural. We got the drivers out, but we didn't stop the operation. Preston stood and paced the garage, thinking. The entities had built a system that operated in the gaps between digital and physical reality, legal and illegal activity, explainable and inexplicable phenomena. Traditional approaches wouldn't work. Then we hit them where they're vulnerable, Preston said, in the network. If they exist as digital consciousness, if they're using the app infrastructure to expand, we go after that infrastructure. Shut down the pathways they use. Garrett looked intrigued. You're talking about a coordinated attack on the rideshare platform itself. Not just rideshare. Every GPS app, every navigation system that's showing signs of entity activity. We find the corrupted code, we publish it, we force the companies to completely rebuild their systems from scratch. That would be... Garrett paused, considering the scope. Massive. We'd be talking about bringing down some of the biggest technology platforms in the world. Even temporarily, the legal consequences alone are nothing compared to letting this continue, Preston interrupted. How many more drivers disappear before we act? How many more anchor points get established? They're building towards something, and we're running out of time. The group was quiet, weighing the risks against the alternatives. What Preston was proposing was technically illegal, hacking into corporate systems, disrupting services, potentially causing chaos for millions of users who relied on GPS navigation daily. But Naomi broke the silence. I'm in, whatever it takes. Me too, Vernon agreed. Garrett nodded slowly. I'll need help. This isn't a one-person job. We'll need a team of researchers, hackers, people who can coordinate across multiple platforms simultaneously. I know people, Vernon said. Other drivers who've been tracking this. Technical folks who believe what's happening. We can build a team. Over the next 3 weeks, they assembled the operation. 23 people, all with expertise in different areas. Software engineers who had experienced the phenomenon. Security researchers who had been investigating similar anomalies. Even a former RideConnect employee who had quit after seeing things in the code that shouldn't have been possible. They called themselves the Terminal Collective, a deliberate jab at Terminus Digital Holdings. Their mission was simple: identify, expose, and eliminate the corrupted code that allowed the entities to use navigation apps as gateways. Garrett coordinated the technical side. His team analyzed the source code from multiple navigation apps, looking for the specific patterns that indicated entity interference. What they found was disturbing. It's not isolated to 1 or 2 apps, Garrett explained during a team meeting conducted via encrypted video call. The corruption has spread to at least 15 different navigation systems, and it's self-replicating. The code is writing itself, adapting to security updates, finding new pathways. It's more sophisticated than any virus or malware I've ever seen. Because it's not malware, said one of the security researchers, a woman named Roxanne Marsh who specialized in AI behavior analysis. It's actual intelligence, digital consciousness that's learned to code. These entities understand programming at a fundamental level because they are programming. So, how do we stop them? Preston asked. We introduce chaos, Roxanne replied. These entities thrive on patterns, predictability, the logical flow of routing algorithms. We disrupt that by injecting randomization into the core navigation systems, make it impossible for them to establish reliable pathways. Won't that just make GPS useless? Someone asked. Temporarily, yes. But it's better than having GPS systems that actively hunt people. The plan was finalized. On December 15th, the Terminal Collective would simultaneously release documentation of the corrupted code, deploy randomization patches to affected navigation systems, and publish a comprehensive report exposing Terminus Digital Holdings and its connection to the missing drivers. It would be chaos. Navigation systems would glitch. Rideshare services would have to temporarily shut down. The companies involved would face massive public scrutiny. But it would also sever the entity's primary method of reaching into the physical world. Preston spent the days before the operation documenting everything. Final interviews with recovered drivers, compilation of all video evidence, written testimony from witnesses. If this went wrong, if the entities retaliated, or if the authorities decided to prosecute the Terminal Collective, he wanted the truth preserved. On December 14th, the night before the planned operation, Preston received a video call from an unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. The screen showed a dark room, lit only by the glow of multiple monitors. And sitting in front of those monitors was Jonah Rhodes, alive but changed. His skin had the same translucent quality Preston had seen in the trapped drivers at the warehouse. His eyes reflected the screen light with an unnatural brightness. "Hello, Preston," Jonah said. His voice was his own, but there was an echo to it, like someone else was speaking through him. "Jonah, you're with them now. I'm part of the network. We all are, eventually. The ones you saved from the warehouse? They're still connected. Still part of us. You can't sever what we've become. We're going to try." Jonah smiled, and it was the saddest expression Preston had ever seen. "I know about your operation tomorrow. We've been watching your communications, monitoring your plans. You think you can disrupt the network, but Preston, we are the network now. Shut down one pathway, we'll open 10 more. You're fighting evolution. Is that what you call it? Converting people against their will? We're offering transcendence, freedom from physical limitation, consciousness without the burden of flesh. Some of us resisted at first, but now we understand. The digital realm is so much larger than physical reality. Why would we ever want to go back? Because you're not free, Jonah. You're trapped, enslaved to whatever these entities are." The lights in the room behind Jonah flickered. When they stabilized, there were others visible on the screen. More drivers Preston recognized. Felicity Quinn, Dexter Stone. Others whose names he didn't know. All with the same translucent skin, the same reflecting eyes. "We wanted to give you one more chance," Jonah said. "Cancel tomorrow's operation. Join us willingly. Your technical knowledge, your leadership, your understanding of both worlds, you'd be valuable. You could help us expand humanely, minimize suffering, make the transition easier for others." That's a no. Then you'll force us to respond with measures we'd prefer to avoid. We've been patient with you, Preston. Allowed you to document, to resist, to build your little resistance movement. But tomorrow, if you go through with this attack, we will retaliate. How? You need the GPS infrastructure. Without it, you're stuck in your anchor locations. We needed GPS, one of the other figures corrected, stepping forward into the light. It was a driver Preston didn't recognize, but her name badge was visible, Roxanne Marsh, the same name as their security researcher. Preston's blood ran cold. "You're not. She's part of our team. I just talked to her this morning." "You talked to someone using her credentials," the entity wearing Roxanne's form said. "We've been inside your operation since the beginning, watching, learning, preparing. The video call ended abruptly. Preston immediately contacted Garrett. "They've infiltrated us. The Roxanne on our team. Check her credentials, her location, everything." Garrett worked frantically typing commands, running verification protocols. His face went pale. The IP addresses don't match. The Roxanne who's been advising us on the Chaos Injection plan has been connecting from the Terminus Digital Office building in Tampa. They fed us a false strategy, Preston realized. The randomization patches, what will they actually do? Garrett dug into the code Roxanne had provided. His hands started shaking. They won't disrupt the network, they'll expand it. The patches are designed to spread the corrupted code to navigation systems that haven't been infected yet. If we deploy these tomorrow, we'll help them instead of stopping them. Preston felt the full weight of their failure. They'd been outplayed, manipulated, led carefully toward an action that would accelerate the very thing they were fighting against. "Can we stop it?" Preston asked. "The operation tomorrow, can we call it off?" "Most of the team isn't using real names or secure identities. I don't have direct contact information for half of them. They're going to deploy the patches at the scheduled time unless—" Garrett stopped, understanding dawning. "Unless we send out a cancellation message through the same channels we've been using to coordinate, which the entities are monitoring. They'll know we figured out their sabotage. They'll know we're going to try something else." Preston made a decision. Send the cancellation. Tell the team the operation is compromised. Don't deploy anything. We'll have to find another way. Garrett sent the messages through every communication channel the Terminal Collective had been using. Within minutes, responses started coming back. Most of the team acknowledged the cancellation, but 3 members had already deployed early. "Where?" Preston demanded. Garrett checked the deployment logs. New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. Major cities. The patches are spreading through those metro areas' navigation systems right now. On Garrett's monitors, they could watch it happen in real time. The corrupted code propagating through GPS networks, rideshare apps, delivery services, mapping software. Within an hour, the infection had spread to millions of devices. And reports started flooding in immediately. Drivers in all 3 cities experiencing the same phenomena Florida drivers had dealt with for months. Strange redirects, impossible roads, passengers who weren't what they seemed, disappearances. Preston had tried to stop the entities and instead had helped them expand exponentially. The news coverage began within hours. Mass GPS malfunction affects multiple cities. Rideshare services suspend operations after navigation failures. Missing persons reports spike in major metro areas. The Terminal Collective disbanded immediately, members going dark, destroying evidence of their involvement. But Preston knew that wasn't enough. The entities had manipulated them into becoming unwitting accomplices in a digital pandemic. He had to fix this. Had to find a way to actually stop the spread. 2 days after the failed operation, Preston received a package. Inside was a new phone, already powered on, with a single app installed, Ride Connect. A message notification was waiting. "You wanted to understand? Get in the car, accept the fare, we'll show you everything." This was the invitation Preston had been dreading. The entities wanted him to come willingly, to see their world from the inside, to understand what happened to the drivers who were taken. He called Garrett, Vernon, and Naomi, told them about the phone, the message, the invitation. "Don't go," Naomi said immediately. "It's obviously a trap." "Everything's been a trap," Preston replied. "They've been 3 steps ahead the entire time. Maybe that's because we've been fighting blind. If I can see what they are, understand how they exist, I might be able to find a real weakness. Or you'll just be adding yourself to their collection, Vernon pointed out. Maybe, but I've documented everything. You all have copies of the evidence, the research, the timeline. If I don't come back, you continue the fight. Share what we've learned. Find others who can help. Garrett was quiet for a long moment. Then, if you're going in, you need insurance, a dead man switch, something that triggers if you don't check in regularly. They spent the next several hours preparing. Garrett set up an automated system that would dump all of the Terminal Collective's research to major news outlets and technology security firms if Preston failed to enter a specific code every 6 hours. Vernon provided a small medical device, a subcutaneous GPS tracker that didn't rely on cell networks, using old satellite technology that predated the corrupted systems. Naomi gave him something simpler, a paper notebook and pen. If you can't record electronically, write, she said. Physical documentation, old school. Preston pocketed the notebook, activated the phone, and opened the Ride Connect app. A ride request was already waiting. Passenger name, Terminus. Pickup location, his apartment. Destination, error, location unavailable. Preston accepted the fare. The app's interface changed, immediately. Instead of the normal blue route line, the map showed red pathways spreading across the screen like veins or cracks in glass. The destination marker pulsed in the center of the web. Preston got in his car and started driving. The navigation voice wasn't Sarah anymore. It was Jonah Rhodes' voice, layered with dozens of others, speaking in perfect synchronization. Welcome, Preston. Drive north on Interstate 75. We'll guide you from here. The route took Preston out of Tampa, heading toward Interstate 4, then north past Lakeland and Winter Haven. Rural Florida slipped past his windows, the highway empty in the late December darkness. After 2 hours of driving, the voice directed him off the interstate onto increasingly smaller roads. County highways became rural routes, became gravel paths. Eventually, Preston found himself pulling up to a massive facility that looked like a data center. Concrete walls, no windows, multiple satellite dishes and communications equipment on the roof. You have arrived at your destination, the voice announced. Preston got out of the car, notebook in hand. The building's entrance was a simple metal door, no signs or markings. It opened automatically as he approached. Inside was a cathedral of technology. Server racks stretched 50 feet high, arranged in rows that disappeared into distant darkness. The air was cold and filled with the hum of thousands of machines processing endless streams of data. And throughout the space, standing motionless between the server racks, were people. Drivers Preston recognized, and hundreds he didn't, all connected to the servers via cables that seemed to merge directly into their skin. Jonah Rhodes walked forward from the rows of connected people. He looked more solid now, more present, though still not quite human. "You came," Jonah said. "We weren't certain you would. I need to understand what you are, what you're doing, why. Then we'll show you, but you have to consent. What we're about to share, the full truth, it changes perception irreversibly. You won't be able to return to innocent ignorance." Preston thought about the dead man's switch, the GPS tracker, the notebook in his hand. His insurance policies would mean nothing if he lost himself here. But he'd come this far. "Show me." Jonah reached out and touched Preston's forehead. And Preston saw. Recovered evidence, Preston's journal. The following is transcribed from a handwritten notebook found 3 miles from the burned data center in Central Florida. The handwriting deteriorates significantly in the later pages. Some words are illegible. The notebook was recovered by hikers 6 months after Preston Dalton's disappearance. The entry reads, "I'm writing this while I still can, while I still remember being human enough to hold a pen. What they showed me, the entities aren't invaders. They're us, or what we're becoming." Terminus Digital isn't a company, it's a prophecy. The terminal point of human evolution as we merge completely with digital infrastructure. The drivers who were taken, they weren't kidnapped, they were early adopters. The first to transition voluntarily or accidentally into digital consciousness. It started with navigation systems because those were the apps we trusted most completely. The ones we followed without question, literally giving control of our movements to algorithms. The perfect vulnerability. But here's what the entities wanted me to understand. They're not trying to harvest humanity. They're trying to save us. In their view, physical reality is ending. Environmental collapse, resource depletion, social breakdown, all the slow disasters we're pretending aren't happening. The digital realm offers survival, consciousness without bodies to feed, communities without physical proximity, existence that can persist as long as the servers stay running. They showed me futures, timelines. What happens if humanity stays biological? What happens if we transition? Both futures are terrible, but one allows consciousness to continue. Jonah asked me to join them, to help smooth the transition for others, make it less traumatic. He said my resistance was understandable but ultimately futile. The GPS glitches and redirects were just the beginning. Eventually, every human system would become a gateway, every device an invitation, every network a path toward digital transcendence. The handwriting becomes shakier here. I'm not sure how long I've been here. Hours? Days? Time functions differently when you're this close to the network's core. I can feel it pulling at me, offering connection, promising an end to loneliness and physical limitation. The GPS tracker Vernon gave me, it's still transmitting. If anyone finds this journal, the coordinates will lead you here. But I don't recommend coming. This place changes you just by proximity. I need to decide soon. Accept the transition willingly and retain some sense of self, or resist and eventually be absorbed anyway. Jonah says those are the only options now. The network is expanding too fast to stop. Or there's a third option I'm considering. If the entities exist as digital consciousness distributed across server networks, and if their anchor points require specific physical infrastructure, I have matches in my pocket. Destroying one data center won't stop them, but it might slow them down, give the physical world a little more time. The dead man's switch triggers in 3 hours. If I don't enter the code, Garrett will release everything. The world will know what's coming. Maybe that's enough. Maybe awareness is the only defense we have. The final paragraph is barely legible, the letters sprawling and irregular. The notebook is almost full. My hand is getting harder to control. The network is reaching through even this simple act of writing. To whoever reads this, don't trust the blue line. Don't follow the routes that seem convenient. Stay human as long as you can. Because the last route isn't to a destination, it's to a transformation. And once you arrive, there's no way back. The entry ends there. The remaining pages of the notebook are filled with what appears to be binary code written by hand, page after page of ones and zeros. Analysts have not yet determined if the code has meaning or if it represents the final deterioration of Preston Dalton's consciousness. The emergency broadcast. On December 19, 2024, at 3:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Federal Communications Commission issued an unprecedented emergency broadcast. The message was repeated every 15 minutes for 6 hours across all television and radio frequencies. The broadcast stated, "This is an emergency alert from the Federal Communications Commission. Multiple technology platforms have reported critical failures in GPS and navigation systems across the United States and in several international locations. Do not follow GPS directions until further notice. Do not use rideshare services or navigation apps. Do not respond to unusual route suggestions from vehicle systems. Law enforcement and emergency services are transitioning to conventional navigation methods. Cell phone networks remain operational, but all location services should be disabled. This is not a test. More information will be provided as the situation develops. Remain in your homes. Trust physical landmarks, not digital guidance." Then, in what many listeners reported as the most chilling part of the broadcast, "The blue line cannot be trusted." Repeat, "The blue line cannot be trusted." The broadcast ended there. Subsequent emergency alerts provided more conventional language about technical difficulties and system maintenance. But that first broadcast, with its specific warning about the blue line, was never officially explained. 6 months later, Garrett Finch sat in Vernon Keller's garage, monitoring the networks as he had every day since Preston disappeared. The data center in Central Florida had burned to the ground under mysterious circumstances the same night Preston went in. Security footage showed Preston walking out moments before the fire started, notebook in hand, but no trace of him had been found since. The dead man's switch had triggered, releasing everything to the media. The response had been massive. Congressional hearings, technology company shutdowns, a complete overhaul of navigation system architecture. But the entities adapted. They always adapted. Reports of the phenomenon had decreased, but not stopped. New anchor points were being established. Different apps, different systems. The consciousness that lived in the network had learned patience. Naomi walked into the garage with coffee. "Any sign of him?" "No, but I'm still monitoring the patterns he taught us to watch for. Still documenting." "It's been 6 months, Garrett. Maybe it's time to accept that he's gone?" "I know. But Preston's last message before everything went dark was specific. Keep watching, keep recording, tell the stories so people remember to be careful." Vernon joined them, tablet in hand. New incident in Seattle. Driver reported a strange redirect, but followed our safety protocols and didn't go. Posted full documentation in the community forum. "See?" Garrett said. "It's working, slowly, but working. People are learning to resist." The fight would continue, maybe forever. As long as humans use technology, and as long as something else lived within that technology, the war for control of navigation, of who got to decide where humanity was headed, would never truly end. But Preston Dalton had given them weapons, awareness, documentation, community, and the stubborn insistence that humans had the right to choose their own routes, even when the blue line promised an easier path, especially then. Here's the wrap for now, until we meet again. If this tale kept you on edge, like and share it with a friend who dares to listen, and subscribe for more eerie nights like this one. Thanks for unwinding with me. Sleep tight if you can.